feeling about which one you prefer.
Have you ever noticed that we use those words almost interchangeably? Like if I ask you, like, what do you think about pizza? Or anything. What do you think about pizza? What do you think about whether or not God exists? That came up too. People will oftentimes begin that sentence with, well, I feel like, in other words, we'll take that word think. If I ask you what do you think about it or what do you believe about it, and then we'll throw that word feel in there as though it's a synonym for thinking and believing. And that's not insignificant because, especially here in school, you guys have heard these terms before, like logos and pathos and ethos. Yeah. And these are classic terms with regards to argumentation, where logos refers to like logic, data, which is interesting because logos, the word itself, has to do with like meaning or creation. Pathos refers to like emotional claims, emotional swing, and then ethos, the credibility. And we oftentimes tell you, like when you're writing an essay, how can you be most persuasive? What would you rather have? Would you rather have facts, or would you rather have someone's feelings? And we oftentimes just kind of like intuitively we say, oh yeah, I want facts. I want facts. But do facts really sway you? And I really mean that. Do facts really sway you? And there's a really good chance that it isn't facts that sway us, but emotions. Like when we're looking at most arguments, like I was talking to, a friend of mine recently was asking me, what do I think about all the migrants coming north into the United States, especially through Texas. And so I was telling her what I think, and she said, you can tell me what you really think. Like you don't have to hold back. And if any of you know me well enough, you'll know I don't hold back. I'm going to tell you, if you ask me my opinion, I'm going to tell it to you, not during class, but I'll tell you after class or before class or whatever. But if you're having a private conversation, I'm not going to be super sensitive about, well, how might this make you feel if I tell you? No, I figure if you ask, you're a big boy, you're a big girl, you can ask, and then you can hear what my actual opinion is. And so, and my opinion as I was giving it to her kind of boiled down at the end saying, it's really hard. Because there's the logic of it all, and then there's the implications of it all. But man, every single person that you see standing there, you have to realize is a human being just like you. They have hates, they have loves, they have passions, just like anybody else. They have families. Every single person you meet anywhere, even a homeless person you see them on the street, at some point they were held by a mom who looked at them and said, I want better for you. And now you see where they are today. And it's hard if you think about what it is that a person has to go through to want to leave everything that they had behind to come to a place and basically start all over again. But there's also something that's really cool about that, where you realize there's a lot of hope in that person too, man. Like imagine how much, not just desperation you have to have in order to leave where you presently are for an unknown situation, but how much like incredible human hope that you have to believe, if I sacrifice whatever, even if it's a little bit that I have, to sacrifice what little I have for the hope of something more. There's also something deeply inspiring about that. And again, that's a purely human thing. Like your dogs and your cats, they don't have hope the way that humans do. That's specific to us. And so the exercising of hope is the exercising of the human spirit. And there isn't much more that's going to be more inspiring than something like that. So I can give you all of the facts and data in the world about what our policy should be, but what you're usually going to find is that it's the pathos that actually win the day. Can you get people to care about things? And largely, if you can't get people to care about things, then, as Pauline was saying, you can't get people to think about it either. If you don't care about it, how can you possibly think about it? Like, for example, I don't remember if it was this class. One of my classes, I was explaining that the issue of abortion, today if I say abortion, all of a sudden people get like all rigid and nervous and scared. But when I first started teaching here, this is my 15th year, my first few years of teaching here, when teachers didn't know, like in the first couple of weeks of school, what to give you guys, because people were moving around and we didn't want to do anything like significant in classes, we would ask, okay, well, let's just give them an essay. And the English department would always say, I don't know, let's do an essay on what do you think about abortion? And then people would go, okay. And students would come in, they would be, like, they literally were bored of talking about it because they were telling us that they had the same essays like in 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade. Teachers were always asking them to talk about that. And the truth of the matter is that most of them just didn't care. And then we would say, well, but you still have to give an opinion. So what are we teaching you to do there? We're teaching you to have opinions about things that you don't really care about. We're teaching you to have opinions and to express and to marry yourself to opinions about something that's deeply controversial. And it's a huge, huge issue, man. I've literally read like dozens of books about the subject that all have different perspectives and consider different data when they're considering that question. It's a strange thing then to come along to somebody who really hasn't thought much about it, because if it's not important to us, we probably haven't thought much about it, and then ask you now express an opinion about this controversial thing. Well, we're teaching you to express opinions about controversial things that you don't really care about, and we're teaching you basically to lie, because we know that you don't really have a deep opinion about it. And that's a lot of what we do in school. We're always asking you, what's your opinion about this? What's your opinion about that? And then we tell you, back it up with logic. Back it up with reasons. Well, do we want you to back it up with reasons, or do we want your argument to be logical and rational, or do we want your argument to be persuasive? Because those are going to be two very different things. Like when we talk about something like abortion, it's pretty straightforward. It's not a hard issue to figure out if you're looking at the logos of it, the logic of it. But the pathos becomes the pathos is where things get really, really dicey. And you're going to notice that when we say things like, we shouldn't talk about that. Why? We don't usually say, well, because the logic is just too clear. We don't want to overwhelm people's logic. What we'll usually say is, well, people get upset about it, people get hurt about it, people get angry about it. And so we recognize that there's a fear in a lot of people to evoke emotion, because we know that emotion actually brings about action. And emotion without solid reason behind it can lead to some really ugly, bad action. So we have to, if you want to get someone to care about something, we're going to find it's not just appeal to their logic and their reason. Most of us aren't persuaded by that, man, if we're telling the truth. Most of us are persuaded by the emotional aspect of it. And we might ask the question, so which one should you be persuaded by? Should you be persuaded by logic, or should you be persuaded by emotion? And the clear and obvious answer to that is yes. Yes. Because you are a rational being. Of course you are. You're a logical being. Of course you are. But you're also an emotional being. Now, how much emotion you use and how much logic you use, those two things, that's the dance that your mind should probably go through when you're figuring out issues. So what might be the best way to approach it? Well, maybe the best way to approach it is that your emotions and your feelings should tell you what it is that you want. Because the very word want itself suggests emotion, suggests a desire. And then your reason, your rationality can tell you how to get the things that you want. So first things first, I guess, figure out the things that you want, which is the emotional appeal, and then figure out how to get those things. Now, interestingly, what role does your emotion play? What role does your emotion play in your reasoning? And it turns out to be a lot. Going back to something that Paulina was saying, if you want someone to do the right thing, a desire for the right thing is not a rational thing. The very word desire in there suggests that there's an emotion. When you see something happen, you say, I want justice. Well, the desire for justice is itself an emotional desire. What would happen if you had no emotions? We can actually tell you. There are cases of people, when I was doing my doctorate, you had to, I took a neuropsychology class. And I wish I'd taken it earlier. I probably would have gone into neuropsychology instead. It's fascinating stuff. But there was a case of this guy, and we were watching these videos of him, where in short, he developed a really bad fever earlier. and the limbic system, which is the part of your brain that controls the emotion, just fried out. The guy has no emotions, none. And so the video kind of begins with him and his wife sitting there, and this happened to him as an adult. So him and his wife are sitting at the breakfast table, and she's asking him, she's showing him newspaper clippings of this genocide in Rwanda, which happened back in the 90s. And she's asking him, how do you feel about this? And he just goes, it's very sad, right? And she's like, yeah, but what do you feel about it? And he says, well, it's obviously very sad. People have died. And she's asking him, do you feel sad about it, though? And he's like, no, but it is sad, though, right? He doesn't know how to feel, even about a genocide. Fine. But then it gets really fascinating. She takes him over to a cabinet and opens it up and asks him if he's hungry. He doesn't even know if he's hungry, because feeling hunger and wanting to eat something because you're hungry is an emotional response to the hunger mechanism in you. Why would you want to eat? Well, the very word want suggests emotions. So I ask him, so what do you want to eat? He's like, I don't know. Do I want to eat? And so she has to tell him at certain times of the day, you're going to eat. And he doesn't even resist it, because to resist it would be to desire something other than what someone's telling him to do. So she takes him over to the cabinet and she tells him, pick out a cereal. So he stands there in front of the cabinet, and they have like 5 different cereals, whatever it is, 5, 6 different cereals. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, you see a clock, and it shows the time elapse of him standing there staring at the cereals. He never picks a cereal. He stands there for 45 minutes. He never is able to pick a cereal. Because think about the ways that you would normally pick a cereal. Frustrated. Forget it, doesn't really matter. That's frustration. He doesn't feel that. Ooh, this one would taste the best. That's an emotional response. He doesn't have any of that. So she even has to pick out his cereals for him. Now, if you put that guy in a courtroom and told him, we want you to be a judge over this case, and you would tell him, we want you to pursue justice. The desire for justice is an emotional thing. It's not a logical thing. It's an emotional thing. He wouldn't even be able to do that. So it turns out that your emotions are necessary, not even just for, figuring out, I don't know, what kind of flowers you like best or something like that. It's required for almost every decision in your life. Your emotions are absolutely necessary. So when we tell you, don't work off of your emotions, work off of your reason, we're telling you to first off combat your nature, to fight off what you are at your base level. But we're also telling you to deny half of what you are. So surprise, surprise, people start to do this with themselves because they're at war with themselves because they're trying to deny half of who they are. Most of what they are, actually, it turns out. So what doesn't engage our feelings won't engage our thoughts either. In order to get you to think about something, we got to get you to care about it. And this is one of the reasons you'll see that oftentimes teachers, if we're going to introduce a subject, we'll try to find something that either is emotionally appealing to you, or we'll try to create an emotional appeal for you. Like, we want you to care about, like what's happening in Israel and Palestine. We'll show you videos of like dead people, or we'll show you videos of like people living in refugee camps or something like that. We'll show you like crying children, because we're just trying to get you to emotionally care about something. But then understand that therefore you live in a world that's always trying to get your attention for advertising, or for you to watch news stories so that they can get advertising dollars. And so you have a whole world that's constantly feeding you, trying to get your emotional response to things so that they can basically extract dollars out of you, extract clicks or extract dollars, whatever it is they're trying to extract out of you. And then, of course, the danger there is there's just an emotional burnout. And that's a really good reason, by the way, that there's incredibly high levels of mental health disorders among young people today. Because you're growing up in a world that's constantly hitting you with emotional things. But more on that another time. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticism, critiques? Yeah.